Hello everybody. In this video, we will discuss about the different utility and preference functions. Introduction to utility. Utility represents the satisfaction or happiness derived from consuming goods or services. It is about how satisfied or how somebody feels happy about using a commodity or a service. So, how is utility related to economics? Utility is central to consumer choices. It forms the base of consumer choice theory. Utility explains how individuals make decisions to maximize their satisfaction. Key utility concepts are total utility and marginal utility. Types of utility. The first is cardinal utility. These are measures of utility that can be stated numerically. If I could tell the number of utils, then it is cardinal utility. The next is ordinal utility, which assumes that utility can only be ranked in order of preference without any precise measurement. Say we may be able to rank if A is over B and B is over C. Instead, we cannot give any value for A, B, and C. So in that case, it is ordinal utility. Preference relation. So what is preference? Preferences describe how an individual ranks different bundles of goods. So it follows several assumptions. First is completeness. It believes that every pair of options can be compared. So in preference relations, we assume that an individual has the capacity to compare all the available options. The second is transitivity. If A is preferred to B and B to C, then A is obviously preferred to C. So if I prefer tea to coffee and coffee to milk, then I obviously prefer tea to milk. So that is transitivity. The third is non-satiation. It's just that people never get content. More is always preferred than less. When it comes to utility, there is something called indifference curve. An indifference curve represents all combination of goods that provide the same level of utility. So the properties of an indifference curve are it is usually downward sloping. More of one good compensates for the less of another. The second, it is a non-intersecting curve. Indifference curve cannot cross each other. Convexity. Indifference curve are always convex, which means they reflect a preference for balanced bundle of goods. Utility function. A utility function assigns a numerical value to each possible bundle of goods, reflecting the level of satisfaction. The general form of utility is utility as a function of x1, x2, xn, etc., where x1, x2, xn are the quantities of different goods. One example of utility function is the Cobb-Douglas utility function. So the utility function between the different goods would be an indicator of how to compare the different bundle of goods or how to compare the preference between the different bundle of goods. So, marginal utility. Marginal utility is the additional satisfaction gained from consuming one more unit of a good. Say, for example, I've already eaten two sweets, and if I happen to eat the third sweet, maybe I'm even more satisfied. The extra happiness, the extra satisfaction that one gets out of using the additional unit of good is called marginal utility. Diminishing marginal utility, on the other hand, is a principle that tells that as consumption of a good increases, the additional satisfaction decreases. See, like in the example I told before, I've already had two sweets. I'm given the third, I'll be happy. I'm given the fourth, I'll be happy. But if I'm given the fifth, I would start developing an aversion. Okay, my tummy is enough of sweetness, or my mouth is enough of sweetness. I don't want any more sweets. So there, the utility diminishes, and that is diminishing marginal utility. Preferences function in decision theory. How preference function matters in decision theory. A preference function ranks choices based on their utility, guiding decisions under uncertainty. So that is again what is discussed in the expected utility theory, which evaluates decisions by considering the utility of all possible outcomes weighted by their probabilities. Risk aversion and utility function. Risk preferences can be put in three categories: risk averse, risk neutral, and risk seeking. Risk averse people prefer outcome over a gamble. Risk neutral people have an indifferent attitude between outcome and gamble. Risk seeking people would prefer gamble over outcomes. On the other hand, when we compare utility functions and risk, the concave utility function is an indicator of risk aversion. Linear utility function represents risk neutrality. Convex utility function represents risk-seeking behavior. Applications for utility and preference functions. These functions are of great help in consumer choices. Utility functions guide consumers in making choices that maximize their satisfaction given their budget constraint. Utility functions are used to evaluate economic policies by assessing their impact on overall social welfare. Utility function recognizes that real life decision making often deviates from the rational models, incorporating insights from psychology. In conclusion, we've explored the utility and preference functions, their role in consumer choice, and their applications in various economic scenarios. These mathematical representation of preferences help in understanding how individuals and markets operate. We learned how preferences can be ranked, analyzed, and used to predict behavior in uncertain situations. Hope this video was helpful. I'll catch you soon with another interesting content.